Welcome to the Soft Issues podcast. This week we're talking with industry legend George Gori, saddleback brand manager, mountain bike racer, wheelie popper, and all-round top bloke. So tell us your theory about hitting stuff, George.
My theory, largely a lot of our conversation was lost before we've hit record here. But we were just saying that it's there's a lot of aspects of spannering and bike repairs that I think the general public feel that there should be like a nice, well-made drift or removal tool or something like that, and the reality behind a lot of press fit things and a lot of interference fit things is that you really have to get a bit gung-ho on removing them and taking a drift and a heavy hammer and a bit of persuasion to get them out. But it's not always the expectation of the customer that this delicate £10,000 bike they've got is about to take the shoeing of its life. But
I think there was a technical term, wasn't it? Just twat it.
Yeah, just twat it one. Yeah, between us all. Hold this. That's where you got to clear everything off your workbench so you can see where the bits landed that you just hammered out.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like things have. You've broken windows with that kind of.
There's been numerous bits, and there's been numerous occasions where you fire something out and it's gone under 3 different workbenches. There's a team effort to retrieve the saddle wedge or whatever it was that you've had to knock out, or the bearing cup.
Yeah, my goodness. I used to do bike fits at people's homes and having to get out the hammer in their home and smash their seat post whilst they're holding their bike.
You always feel a bit delicate around someone's house as well, though, don't you? If you ever nip by to repair something that was missed, you always feel a bit like you're a guest in someone's home and you can't put like stuff on the kitchen table or whatever. Like you can't put tools on the kitchen table.
I don't know. Yeah, I think I did used to ask permission before I got the hammer out. But yeah, I've just come round with a hammer.
Yeah, is that in general, or in terms of bike repairs?
Well, usually I was in the context of bike fitting, but don't generally carry a hammer around with me to people's homes.
Like on the police programs, isn't it? When they turn up at the front door with the sled, like with the
the ram.
The ram. Do you mind if I use this?
Yeah. Can we come in? Yeah.
It was amazing how strong PVC-U doors are. Those look like the ones that survive, don't they?
I don't know. They always seem to cave in so much in all the programs and so on. But anyway, let's see. At least they're not made of carbon fibre.
No. There's a strange belief that the more expensive the bike is, the more indestructible it is as well. I'm sure we've all come across that in our time as well. And it's like like when you're watching the Formula One and they sort of have a little touch tyres and then it creates this rainbow of shards of carbon around the place.
Oh my goodness.
But we are in the home of shards of carbon here, aren't we? We're in Lee Valley Velo Park.
Goodness.
And if we've ever stood outside and watched the racing.
Yeah. Did you ever see any kind of bad crashes in that kind of way when you were racing?
A good friend of mine, we used to race here quite a lot, and the full gas series used to be up here. And a good friend of mine had missed the move, and he was getting bored. And I remember, sort of as we were coming past, the circuit, you can see each other quite a lot.
Yeah.
And he was sort of waving and thumbs up and this and that. And I think he just got distracted and got caught by the crosswind. and off the back of the bunch, he was just tapping around getting home pretty much. Yeah. And his front wheel got whipped out and he bashed his face on the floor. Oh. And we all finished the race and we're like, where's Kev then?
Oh, God. Yeah, I mean, talking to the guys at the front desk here, there's every Wednesday. In fact, it's Wednesday today, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, ready for broken collarbones.
So. We did, on the track league, we once saw someone go into the seats. That was, there was a lad called Tom Kennison, lovely lad. He's still with us today. and he came. It was in the B's race, and the A's were just about. We were all like waiting to go onto the track for our race, and the bunch caught 2 riders on the last lap, and I don't think they realised the perpetual speed of the bunch, and one of them swung up to get out of the way and kind of ripped through the bunch. And like on track, you tend to ride over stuff. If there's something happening, you go up because everything slides down, and it sort of works quite well. But with the speed of it all, people were sliding up, and he sort of like hit someone and took off and went along the rail and then into the seats. And it was just the most catastrophic noise you've ever heard of plastic and bikes and groaning. And they were like, right, well, it should be about 20 minutes. We'll get it all sorted. And then you go back up. And then it kind of went on a bit more. And they were like, we'll probably get one race by the end of the evening. We're all like, when you've seen something, you're like, yeah, I'll probably go home.
Yeah.
I suddenly missed my wife and my ability to walk.
Yeah.
Just don't fancy it today.
Yeah. But generally speaking, it's all pretty safe.
Cycling's very safe, isn't it? Everyone, yes.
Triathlon.
Time trialing is...
Don't know. Hacking on the
F4. Like you said, cycling you just fall off and lose skin, whereas like time trialing's the iffy one now, isn't it? It used to be like 20 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
I was watching Dan Bingham at Worlds, and I don't think he looked up like once. He's just had his head like in his lap.
It used to be like so simple back in the day, because like in Devon when I was racing when I was younger, you sort of did time trials because there'd only be like a road race every 2 or 3 weeks, or an evening crit, like they'd do 4 through the summer or something, and you'd stack it up with time trialing. You'd go to the local 10, and there'd always be a club 10, but you turned up on kind of whatever, and people were on like an old like Steel Harry Quinn from when they were a junior, and it was good enough, and everyone sort of bowled on and got on with it, and like you said, they pedalled round, but it's like even track's got like that. It's an arms race now, isn't it? Like
absolutely
mechanical doping, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. And the trouble is, like, it's got so far into the sharp end that the exponential speed of it all, now that it's going like an extra 10k an hour average or something like that, suddenly means that each difference makes a bit more. But
well, it's like the depth of one's pocket does not necessarily correlate with athletic ability.
No.
You've got to actually still be able to ride a bike.
There used to be rules, though. Well, not rules. There used to be unspoken
gentleman's agreement
etiquette. Yeah, where it was like if you were on a weeknight track league sort of thing, like a bit of a kickabout, that you didn't use carbon wheels and everyone ran the same gear, so it was just racing against each other.
Yeah.
And now it's like you and it is that sort of trickle down thing where one guy who's suffering a bit will go, oh fuck it, I'll put my disc on. And then the next guy, then he's not the last guy anymore, and then the next guy goes, oh well, so and so's got their disc in, I'll stick mine in, and then like you still see the juniors and the Ethan Vernons and stuff that like when I was racing here, he was still on a tiny gear and alloy wheels, but everyone else is going, well, to keep up, we're going to have to go. And then now, like I'm sure if you went into the velodrome here on a winter's evening for track league, particularly the lower categories, it's like a World Cup round. It's 5 spokes, aero helmets, aero socks,
Look T20s.
Yeah, this is it.
Bought this really cheap from the French Federation after the Olympics.
I got this off Gregory Broad.
It's so true though, isn't it? It's like, the arms race, and it happens in every brand of cycling.
Yeah.
Like, you go out onto a criterium now, like the Wednesday night knockabout, if you like. Everyone's on like 10 grand bikes, skin suits, aero helmets, like it's bonkers.
Yeah,
absolutely. What happened to the CAD 10?
Yeah, I know.
That's a crit bike, isn't it?
Oh, it's mega. I still got my CAD 12. Like last of the rim brake ones. Yeah.
But now everyone's on a 10 grand bike. Like, can you afford to crash that?
Lacquer Lacquer still.
Just
They have a lot to
sponsoring
answer.
every.
They've probably
Wednesday
got.
Night Crit sponsored by Lacquer.
There must be like a subcategory. Like, are you going to go to Hillingdon or Lee Valley? It's like, yes, all right, another 30 quid on your premium.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's mad, isn't it? Like the handlebar thing as well. Like this is where I'm starting to feel old, because like I'm willing to forego how many watts must it be, but I'm
0.5,
sure
0.7 at best.
I got scoffed at. Like I haven't done much circuit racing in a while, but last summer I went to Goodwood, and Chris McNamara, he's like I raced with for years, and he loves it. He's like obviously working with Train Sharp. He keyed into everything, and he nearly like fell over because I was pulling on cotton socks. And he's like, "You realise what you're doing?" It's like I'd subscribe to a cult. It's like this is the beginning of the end, my friend.
Leaving it on the table.
Yeah,
George, we've got standards here.
yeah. But that's it. Like there's a sense that I'm willing to forego certain things because I like things to be a certain way, which I think I'm sat in similar company here, that you'd sooner enjoy the. Well, there's a trade-off here because your bike fits as well in it, but
We wear different hats.
yeah, I'd sooner enjoy the aesthetic of my bike than be like chipping away at those tiny little gains here and there. But obviously, then I'm probably further into the sort of enjoying the aesthetic of my bike more so than being in the optimum position.
Wow.
Well, where do we start? Do you want to go first?
I don't know. Yeah, I think we're all in the sport because we enjoy like a particular aesthetic of cycling and so on. So,
as they've called it.
Yeah.
And also what we imagine our day out to be when we're bored doing a task that we don't want to do.
Yeah.
And you have this thought bubble of a picture of where you want to be doing what do you want to look like, and you paint a picture of your romantic day out with your bicycle, don't you?
Yeah. Everyone does. You know, that's just our nature, and that's what we want to do. But we're just lucky as bike fitters. We just have like more choice, more knowledge, so we can make bad choices very consciously if we want to.
Yeah, you know what? It's a bit like going out drinking, isn't it? That you know it's not the best thing for you, but you've made an educated choice to go and get clattered. Like
a calculation.
You made a calculation.
Calculation.
You made a calculation.
No, David. I love how he never cuts him slack, doesn't he? It's like he's trying to build this picture and the excitement and the jeopardy. You're like, do you think they're going to stay away today? No.
We've made the calculations.
We've sat here for 4 weeks now.
But decisions are consequences, right? So, like that wonderful integrated cockpit that you've got is, might be a wonderful piece of aesthetic, but it depends on where you're viewing that aesthetic from. If you're sat at a cafe with a brew looking at your bike, probably looks amazing.
Yeah.
If you're sat on your bike looking at it going, oh, my back hurts, probably not so good.
And I've definitely been there. I've definitely made choices where I've sat on something and then gone, I don't know that I can live with this. And also, like you made choices to, because the whole thing's a bit of a Venn diagram as well, isn't it? And like happiness in one corner, performance and aerodynamics, and you sort of need to slide the bit where you're living into the where you need it most, but you also, having experienced a certain thing in a certain race or a certain bike ride, go, I'm going to change this to suit that. And then it's like, can I live with it for the rest of my time on the bike? And whether that's into the comfort or into the, because like the tyre size thing, isn't it? We've all slid that part of the Venn diagram into like, actually these 28s or these 30s with the technology and the like, I'll forego that tiny bit of weight and probably that sense that the 25s felt quicker, whether they weren't or not. I'll forego that for comfort and grip and
I think you should just generally fit the biggest tyres you can fit in your frame for aesthetic purposes.
that Envy bike can run 35, so we're gonna be on monster trucks, aren't we?
Yeah. I've got 50s on my commuter bike. It's amazing. I feel a thing.
I do like. I've kind of. We've all had this circular gravel bike conversation, haven't we, of where they fit in people's lives, and I think it's a lot to do with your peers and where you live and the accessible terrain you have around you, and also your skill set. I think because I sort of go out the other end of it, and I always feel like my day out is compromised, and I'd soon be on a hardtail with some 2.25s and some bars that I can have a bit more fun with. But that's that thing, isn't it? Because you're like, just fit the biggest tyres on you can have, and that.
You kind of don't know what you don't know.
No.
Like, I remember going back to looking at what I used to ride, like cross country.
Yeah.
I had a Scanium cross country hardtail frame.
Is it a Kona?
It was a Kona.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a Kona. Kona Cooler Primo.
Yeah,
with
they loved a bit of Scandium for a bit, didn't they?
Yeah, it was amazing. I thought it was amazing at the time. 100mm travel forks and like 100mm stem with 540mm width bars. And I thought that was like the bee's knees. Yeah. And you jump back on something like that, and that's pretty much a gravel bike now.
Yeah.
And you jump on your full sus now, and like 760mm wide bars, and that's considered narrow.
It's all sort of down to what we're expected to ride now, though, as well, though, aren't I? Because if you remember, like in the late 90s, a cross-country race was largely like one notch higher on the dial than a cross race, wasn't it? It was sort of like a little bit rougher and maybe a bit longer.
Yeah.
And whereas now, like I live out in the hills, sort of down below Dorking, and like a 100mm cross country bike is mega round there, and we all joke that it's the quickest thing round those hills.
Yeah.
So it's that thing where you like. If we add our 26-inch wheel or like those bikes would be a bit like you'd be better off on a gravel bike compared to like a 26-inch wheel mountain bike with narrow bars, and because the angles are more up to date and the wheels are bigger. But it's that thing that you can now enjoy your cross-country bike round mountain bike trails and the cross-country courses if you go to sort of a regional or a national series or something. They've got drops in them, and they've got
jumps and
But do you think that's a discrepancy in talent, and people are buying bikes that are far like over equipped to cope with lack of talent?
Yes.
Yes, that was a provocative.
We can shake hands and all head on our merry way. We've set the one.
Excellent. Right,
completely.
Next.
And also, it is that sort of the consumer, because like a lot of people are buying into a club in effect, aren't we? Like sort of, I think you very much get people that sort of get a sniff of a sport and then go, what tickets do I need to buy? What things do I need to fit into this group so that I can then like just move in that circle and I don't feel out of place, and
acceptance.
And generally speaking, well, it's also that thing. It's why you get a lot of sort of such people that are so passionate about telling you about what their thing is, because it's like whether it's I don't know, like a particular diet or a particular exercise genre they do or anything like that, you literally it's turning up and having something to talk to. It's to talk about, and you get to a dinner party and it's like I do this and then I'm going to talk about that, and that's cycling used to be the other way, didn't it? Like cycling, you kind of didn't mention it because people thought you either didn't have a driving license or you couldn't afford a car.
It's like throwing around spandex.
It's that like it's that you turn up to like a dinner party and people would be like what do you do? You're like, oh, I'm a bike mechanic. They're like, oh. Whereas now it's
sorry to hear that.
You're getting like ushered out to the garden to look at someone's bike in their shed and go like, oh, I've got this, and like I'm doing a Ride 100. But yes, bikes are largely, it's the same as the automotive industry. It's sold on numbers, isn't it? And I think if someone buys a 150 travel bike and like rides it around the hills and they get used to it, and the next natural thing is like, well, that felt good, but like 160 must feel better, right? Like, or
160 used to be a downhill bike.
Yeah.
Orange Patriot was 160, wasn't it?
I keep saying if you got a modern cross-country bike, for example, like a World Cup cross-country bike, and you gave it to someone in the early 2000s to ride a World Cup downhill on, they would absolutely assassinate people, wouldn't they?
Well, that's the thing. It's like that bike that you were describing, Wade, the hardtail 26, like 100 mil upturned stem, 540 bars. That's what everyone rode.
Yeah,
and you had to have a sense of mechanical sympathy when you rode it. Otherwise, you'd end up in a tree
with inner tubes as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And now it's just like you can turn into a bike park or whatever. You're riding blue trails, which let's face it, aren't the most fun.
Yeah.
Everyone's geared up, like tooled up, like they go into war.
Yeah.
And it's just like, dude, we're on like flowy blue trails. It's cool. Like,
I always joke that the kinematics weren't really sort of when they're figuring out the kinematics of a bike, they didn't really have in mind someone that was like knackered because he was wearing a backpack and big boots, sitting down, freewheeling down the trail. It's like, so that's it. It's sort of, it's hard to make these bike they're great in the Alps and they're great. I think you just got to be honest when you're buying the bike that you're like, what am I using it for, and what will be best.
Exactly.
But I always think as well with saying about those cross-country bikes of that era, that also it had to be done in a process, didn't it? Because you couldn't imagine if you turned up with like my Mach 4, like a 100 mil cross-country bike, and you gave it with 29-inch wheels, disc brakes, and one chainring, and you handed it to, I don't know, like Barry Clark or something in the 90s and go, like, you're probably quicker on this. They go, no way, that's way too long. It's like those, don't know about the disc brakes, it's like, it's all squishy when I pedal. And like I think with all of this, whether it's like the aero stuff or the depth of wheels or, well, you saw how long disc brakes took to really standardise. It has to be done in little increments. And the companies that jump those increments tend to fail and not be known as the people that started the movement, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because like Felt were probably one of the first aero bikes, weren't they? Like in that Garmin Slipstream.
They are, yeah.
But like when you think of, like if you think of who did the first aero bike, like Specialized kind of spring to mind, and
mine was the Cervelo. So
that's exactly
kind of like the benchmark, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's interesting you say, like, because when like one bar and disc brakes and aero was becoming a thing, like the 3T, the Strada, that was like well ahead of its time, and everyone was like, absolutely
got the kicking of its life.
Got absolutely mullered.
And sometimes the infrastructure's not there in the sense of like that when that 3T came out. It like the group sets weren't there, were they really?
Yeah, the gearing ratios weren't there, the group sets weren't there.
I guess that's the difficulty brands have to kind of balance if they want to lead the charge, or they wait till a bigger boy takes it on, and then suddenly everyone's trying to play catch up, and then making maybe poorer decisions because they're trying to be the same. So it's quite a difficult balance to.
I suppose the second tier people, the people that made it work, or the people that became synonymous for it, probably didn't have the idea, but they had the capability and maybe the resource to make the idea work or develop the idea, and just gone like, that's cool, but the bit they're getting a kicking over, if we do this with it, and then just go bam, mass market, right price, and do the right marketing, because ultimately that's a big thing, isn't it? Then
you have an SL7.
I love the loops that like Specialized go in, because they're like, the SL4 was mega. I loved that bike. I had one. And it had that OSBB thing, which was a nightmare, and there were so many like different recalls and changes and kits that they're like, we've got a fix for this, and they send you a little bag of Araldite and some new plastic cups. And then that was such a nice bike, give or take its foibles. And then they're like, right, well, what we've done is the Venge, and the Venge is what you need now, the aerodynamic Venge. And then, like, you couldn't possibly race on that. So you chucked your SL4 in the sea because it was worthless. And then you got your Venge, and then you're like, Venge, this is really good. It's like, oh, well, you need the next Venge. And then you're like, that one seems a bit quicker. So it's integrated cockpit, your favourite shenanigans.
Can't adjust it, but it's quicker.
No, and the front brake cable's got 7 right-hand turns in it. I remember counting because you had to go on a special course to build those things. Otherwise, they wouldn't sell them to the shop.
Christ!
And the front brake cable had 7 right-hand bends in it by the time it got to the shoehorned calipers because of the UCI rule change. But you got that, and then they're like, right, what we've done is we've made this new SL bike, which is kind of as aero. You're like, oh, right, let's chuck my Venge in the sea now. So you've got rid of your Venge, and then you like got your SL7, and they're like, SL7, can't go up mountains on that. So here's your SL4 again, but with a threaded bottom bracket.
Yeah.
You're like, son of a bitch! Like, how have I ended up back here again? And then they're like, and then they've gone and sold you like an SL7 again. And you're like, oh, hang on, like, so, and now it's like it's molded back into like a. It's sort of a little bit aero, but a little bit compliant, and it looks quite cool. Like, I have that.
Tell you what, though, the Athos which they made is absolutely banging. People love that thing,
really,
and kind of like, well, why did you ever go away from it?
It does remind you that normal bikes were. I said this at Goodwood. I was racing around Goodwood, and everyone was like, "This was last summer. I was on a System 6, like a slabby." Uncomfortable but really quick Cannondale aero bike, and we all raced around, and I think it was knocking on 30 mile an hour, and we finished. And I jokingly said to someone I was riding with, like, we could have, if we all had normal bikes, we could have done the exact same thing but enjoyed our bikes on the weekend. and that's the weird bit now, isn't it? But it feels like the industry's coming back a bit now.
Yeah, it always ebbs and flows, doesn't it? Like, I guess they have to push it so far in a certain direction, or do they? I don't know. Like
I think there's that progression, and then, like we said, it's like baby steps so that people accept it, and I guess different people upgrade at different times. But then I think it comes up against a wall where people start getting fed up with a certain attribute, like the comfort of some of those mid-ground aero bikes, and they go, like we were saying a minute ago, I'm willing to forego a couple watts so that I enjoy riding this on a weekend, and this is what's good about them coming back the other way. They're just nicer bikes, aren't they?
But that's the thing, like going back to people getting into the sport early and coming into the sport late. I like all 3 of us here grew up riding bikes, and we've all been in the industry for God knows how long. But people are coming to cycling when they're kind of mid-age or later on, and so they're trying to buy straight into that. I don't know, the aero club or the lightweight club or something like that.
There's that sense as well that unless you, like, we all used to ride our winter bikes. Like on a winter chain gang, didn't we?
That's not a thing anymore.
You can't do it.
The concept of the winter bike.
Yeah. Mudguards, long flappy mudguards.
It's that thing that like an old, like what were they called?
Ribbles used to be
like a
made
Ribble
them.
or
the blue Ribble Audax.
It's funny how there was a standard issue winter bike colour, wasn't there?
Yeah. Blue. Tifosi.
Yeah, Tifosi. I had a Pearson that was blue.
Yeah.
That was mudguard.
Long 4 seasons.
Yeah. Long drop calipers. Yeah. And there's that sense that you used to be, but there's the people that, like, rightly so, only have one bike, and when I go cycling, I ride my bike, and that's fine. But the disparity in performance now sort of nearly makes it impossible to go on that same ride. If someone's on like, I don't know, like a SL7 with 60mm wheels in, and assuming you're both the same strength, it's going to be pretty miserable on your kinesis with send off mudguards and and like 4-season tyres and
Tiagra.
yeah, Tiagra.
No, there's anything wrong with Tiagra.
No, it's whichever mech someone left behind after they had their bike service.
Yeah, part shop being bike, isn't
it? And like your hand built Open Pros, like it's just not two things you can sit next to each other anymore, is it?
Yeah, I'd love to see some stats from the industry actually about winter bikes. Do they? I guess Kinesis still make their bikes compatible, fender compatible.
Yeah, I think disc brakes and tyre clearance have made it more like year-round usable, because even the race wheels thing. Remember, like Pete, you used to have training wheels and race wheels because you couldn't ride round on your carbon tubs, could you?
Yeah.
Like, so, and then because that was the thing. Like round London, you predominantly rode to races, so you did a lot of races on your training wheels, like weeknight races, because you couldn't ride along the Mile End Road on tubs, could you? You'd just get a puncture.
And every time you touch the brake, that's depreciation.
It's
like, you can hear the carbon just melting away.
Well, you tell everyone going to Hog Hill because they had wheels strapped to their backs and stuff.
Sprint carriers. Guy Pearson will get into sprint carriers. He'll tell you the whole history of them.
Oh my God, we should get him on.
Yeah, God, I love it.
Yeah,
it set the world right. He's another generation further back, the disenchantment of the cycle industry.
Well, doesn't he hold the accolade of the oldest bike shop in Britain? Or?
No, it was the oldest bike shop in the world, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They've momentarily subbed it out to another bicycle company.
Or at least the accolade.
Yeah. It's like multiple layers, isn't it? Because it was the shop in Sutton was the original shop, so it's from like 1860. I remember this Canadian guy coming into Pearson's once, and he was like, "This shop is older than my country." and imagine that, they were like building bikes before they had discovered Canada. And it's so strange, that, isn't it? But that original shop is still there, and it's still a bike shop, but it's been subbed out to Balf's, Balf's was also a really old bike shop, but then has been taken over by a larger company that is a chain of bike shops, and it's layer upon layer. But
yeah, it's like all these old brands, don't they? They all get thrown around. Oh, I remember when Holdsworth were still a little shop down in Putney.
Yeah. Well, even like you saw like stuff like Falcon and all those, and then they just became catalogue bikes, didn't they? I remember being crestfallen when Muddy Fox got bought out by the Chinese.
Now it's ended up in Sports Direct.
Oh, I know. I was like the coolest thing when we were talking about our entry point to cycling, weren't we? And that was the aspirational brand when I was a little kid, to get a Muddy Fox, and it was funny because it was all. There's a really good film to watch on Vimeo about the history of mountain biking, and it's got an interview with the two guys that started Muddy Fox, and they ultimately got taken down by a holding company that had financed them, that went bust.
Right.
Yeah. And but they were just a bunch of British guys that kind of created an American-looking brand called Muddy Fox, and it just
went,
flew, didn't it?
Yeah. I guess there weren't so many brands back then.
No.
It's just so easy to buy bikes these days.
Yeah.
It's just it's like I'll have that one, click.
Yeah,
that's a problem, isn't it? We see that every day.
Yeah, I don't know.
Impulsive purchases.
Yeah, it's very easy to spend a lot of money on a bike that,
I remember,
does it work?
In the pandemic, this was what amazed me, that we all went through this process of like, everything's going to be all right. I'm sure that won't end up over here. To it's over here, everything's getting shut down. And I remember sitting down having the conversations at Sigma, and I was like, who's going to buy a bike in the middle of this?
Yeah.
It's amazing I managed not to laugh when I said it. And it was horrendous. I was I think maybe I forgot about the way the world works for a moment, but it was like, surely with all of this happening, and I was taking it very seriously, as a lot of people were, like, no one's going to buy a £10,000 bike now and click and collect. And then, like, Boris was like, yeah, crack on, lads. And then before you know it, we literally we couldn't build them quick enough.
Kaboom,
But spare income and not told to go cycling.
But we survived. Yeah, the industry's been through some pretty severe ups and downs. Like, even after that, and everyone overbought stuff. And then, I don't know how it was for you guys at Saddleback, just getting through that. The idea of, I don't know if you suffered the same kind of overbuying and then overselling, and then
it's funny. Like, it's interesting, sort of being sat where I'm sat. You get to see the different tiers of it because you see a lot of bike shops, and you see like we talk internally about the national accounts, and I look after the southeast, and we've all suffered almost exactly the same problems, just at different levels, and ultimately with different amount of zeros. The exact same thing that was happening to independent bike shops and to the nationals was happening to the distributors, and it was largely how you dealt with that and what you did with what you earned in the good times. And fortunately, Saddleback we've got very good brands. We're very switched on and starting to sound corporate now. But
You're on the radio, George.
Yes, we navigated it well. Like, we obviously haven't come out of it unscathed, and we've got a stock holding of certain things that we wouldn't normally have, but compared to some of the distributors, and you see this in shops that some people do still have a bit of a hangover, but the ones that invested in what they were doing and the right stock when they could get it are the ones that are still doing well. And then there's other ones that went out and bought speedboats and
and all the other crazy stuff.
and just didn't, like, they must have thought that I think a lot of people thought that it was something they were doing and not just this
crazy world
anomaly bubble spike thing. And you just saw that the people that weren't careful or weren't thought out probably haven't survived it, and that's the thing. And that's happened at all levels of it. Like, there's been as in manufacturers that have gone bust, there's been distributors that have gone bust, and there's been bike shops that are closed, and those were the ones that couldn't survive it or were on an edge beforehand.
It's been a massive reshuffle within the industry. I feel like it's still just maybe starting to settle down a little bit. Where
I never wish ill upon anyone, and it's always, it doesn't matter what shop it is, it's always sad when you see shops closing, but there was also a lot that sprung up, and I think there's a lot of people that have been doing it a long time that I think are good, honest, stable businesses, and it's nice to see sort of the wheat from the chaff, for want of a better expression, and the people that are working hard and are being sensible are kind of coming back to offering good services. And in an odd sense, like you were saying about proprietary parts and cockpits and bits and pieces, the universe still needs bike shops, because people that you can't do a lot of this yourself. And I've spent years spannering, and like, even first glance at certain things, you still got to figure it out, and this isn't for the consumer to do. It's to take to someone they trust that know what they're doing.
If there's one lesson I kind of felt like we all learned during the pandemic was, yes, everything went online and it's possible to do stuff online, but it's definitely not sustainable, and you still need that kind of real human interaction. You need to see George coming into your shop and showing you new things, and we need to be able to communicate and talk to people. I mean, our job as bike fitters, it's really a communication and knowledge job. Really, we're here to give people knowledge and to teach them. And there's like 1 billion YouTube videos out there, but you can't become a bike fitter just by watching all the YouTube channels. You have to get down and do stuff. Like, it's like mechanics. Like, yeah, people need mechanics because you need people to work on your bike. You need that skill, that touch point. So
it's definitely not a paint by numbers thing, is it, for you guys? And I think you can't just watch a video and go like, oh well, these are the parameters I need to set to this, because it's not as simple as that. Because everyone's like, we're kind of organic balls of meat that have been like shaped by our circumstances and our genetics. So there's no like simple thing, is there? Like,
going to use that next time.
Yeah.
We are just balls of meat.
Meatballs. I always said meatballs. So, we're basically bone, meat, and water, aren't we? So,
Yeah.
But yeah, and like I said, we all offer something, and it's never a sense that I go to people to sell them stuff. I go to people to sort of help build opportunity, and it's that thing that we're all kind of in this big club that we all kind of an ecosystem that we all need each other to survive, and if we all work together and we all kind of like aim for this greater good where everyone's enjoying it, everyone's making the right amount of money out of it, and we're all doing it for the right reasons, then we can go and ride our bikes at the end of the day, can't we?
But that's an interesting point. It's like, if we're all pulling towards the same end, then life's going to be better for everyone. And do you think, I don't know, like, I've not been in this game as long as you have, or you, Wade, but there was a lot, like especially pre-pandemic, of like every man for himself almost. Do you think now that it's kind of like you said, the wheat's been sort of cut from the chaff a little bit, that there's now more of this like cohesion within the broader industry? Or
there was a sense when in the middle of the pandemic, when there was zero stock of anything, it was like, everything's gone back to like everyone was paying like maximum money for everything, and it was a sense that it's like, this is it now. I think unfortunately the tail end of it, there was a lot of, like we're saying, getting back to this form of status quo. There was a sense that some people needed to do it quicker than others, and some people could weather the storm and view the bigger picture, and there was others that couldn't. And like you said, there's I think unfortunately in the process, a lot of companies kind of made promises to people expecting this to all go on, and they're sort of having to kind of find their way out of those promises that they've made, because it's sort of the growth that was expected by some people just isn't there. So I think unfortunately there's some people that can't, even with the best intentions, pull in the same direction as some of us would like to go in, or the industry needs to go in. But I think the further from that like patient one we go, the better it'll get. Like I think there's companies and businesses that'll do really well, and we'll get to this point where everyone's kind of got. I think most distributors and most retailers are sort of have a good view of the level they need to purchase at, and craziness has passed us a bit.
I think it was just a bit of a wake-up call, wasn't it? And just everyone recalibrating, being like, hey, maybe there's a...
It always seemed like the bike industry was one of the best industries at shooting itself in the foot. It's like, we've got a mountain to climb here, let's make it harder by chopping a leg off. You know what I mean? So
we chop the leg off, we'll be lighter, so we'll get it a bit quicker.
Exactly. But it's kind of like that kind of question, is that will we ever get past that? Do we think as an industry, or are we always going to make a rod for our own backs to a certain extent?
We always joke that the industry will get saved every 4 years. It's like 2012, and then you're like, hey, everyone's cycling again. It was like just petering out, and then it's like, bam, pandemic. We're like, foot and mouth.
Yeah, I've got to remember that.
Mountain biking.
But so we're reading today about a bike manufacturer that's just launched a new bike that you can only use their integrated cockpit on. And that, to me, you can't fit anything else other than the proprietary part that is designed for that bike. And that is just, to me, classic shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
Because you're going to inevitably run out of things that, like options, that you can't possibly have 15 different combinations of handlebar and stem in stock at any one time.
Yeah.
You're going to get disgruntled customers because the one that they need isn't available. and then no one's winning really, are they?
Does this company start with S?
No, it doesn't.
I was thinking Scott.
No,
because they've gone and they've gone from 1.5" steerer. Remember some of the Scots road bikes had 1.5". I was chatting to someone the other day who got his new whatever it is, foil, the aero one. Yeah. Got that through, and the bar's not available yet, and it's got an inch steerer.
Yeah.
So he's lashed his like
an inch steerer.
Yeah,
really,
like Wayho's tone of voice there.
Say what?
An inch steerer.
This is the 80s.
Yeah. So that's stuff like that. Like I know I'm sat here, and part of my job is to offer people the MV Melee frame, which has got a proprietary bar and bar and stem, and you've got the choice of 4 different bars and any stem length you want from the word go, and I think this way of doing it sort of helps you guys, because helps the retailer, because you have to go through the process of it. If you want that bike, you have to go to somewhere that sells that bike, and then you have to figure out your fit. And then when you order the frame, you order the setback of the seat post, and you order the length of the seat post, much as it's either short or long, and you order the stem length, you order the bar width, and you choose from one of 4 types of bars. So that's quite good, because it then pulls the whole process into that one-to-one interaction.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. Like that's kind of how custom bikes should be done. Like there should be a conversation before you commit, and so you go into that buying decision knowing what choices you've made, why you've made them, what difference that should make, and then you get a great bike out of it. Or maybe like the fitter, if they're an honest fitter, would say, hey, this doesn't really actually work for you. Maybe you should try something else. Because not one bike is never going to fit every single person. But you can still get a fantastic bike which is customized and
I think
fits you well when it comes out of the box.
Definitely, and I think stock bikes are getting to a better position with it in the sense that, like, say that's stock sizes, say 48 through to 60, and they are like shorter and taller, so it's a quick bike that suits normal riders, so which is nice and it's compliant. But like you said, there's a lot of even non-proprietary stuff. You still got to chuck a bunch of bits in the bin, haven't you? Like, and that's why you get these awful handlebars and awful stems on those.
It's a funny conversation that we have to have with people when they come buy a bike, and you can kind of see the process which certain manufacturers take. You know, those manufacturers who build the complete bike but just put crappy components all over it because they know that everything's going to get changed anyway, so why would you put good stuff on there?
Even the wheels, isn't it? Like,
but then quite often the customer doesn't know that, so then they're like, why is this bike feel crap?
Well, that's the sad part, that someone has probably spent $4,000, which seems like a lot of money, and it ultimately is. Like they spent like $4,000 on a bike, and they wheel it back in next time, and the free-up body's gone, and they're like, it's because the wheels are junk.
Yeah,
and it's like, well, why are the wheels junk? It's like, well, you meant to replace them as soon as you bought it. That's your next purchase, and it's a bit of a strange situation, isn't it?
I don't know where. Like, I'm not really sure which direction it should go in, unless my ideal would be every bike would be customized from the word go, but that doesn't really work in terms of economy of, you want to make it as easy as possible to sell product to the consumer in order to generate revenue. And, there is a very much a life cycle and a system that's rolling, whether we like it or not.
I think we live in this industry, like largely most people at kind of our level are in the industry because we enjoy bikes and we feel at home, and we enjoy the people that also enjoy bikes, and we all have a laugh, much like today. But there is that a certain tier of certain corners of the industry where, like you said, the least path of resistance to getting that click and that checkout is, and whether it's hiding poor quality stuff underneath the cloak of a shiny paint job, or if it's that thing of like, doesn't matter what bar stem, wheels, chain set, anything it takes to get to a certain price point to go, well, that one's 10% cheaper than the comparable one.
Yeah, maybe it's a price point thing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's once you get to a certain price point, maybe you can only buy a bike if it gets customized in some kind of way.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. And then the question is, well, where is that price point? Like, is £4,000 a lot of money? Is it not a lot of money?
I think some of it depends where you live in the country as well, doesn't it?
Yeah,
like my joke about the cost of coffees. That like the £4,000 compared to your average rental price in Greater London doesn't seem like very much. That's like 2 months of rent. And like £4,000 in Grimsby is it seems a lot more, doesn't it? Like you can get fish and chips for £2, can't you? And it's like But the weird bit is we say this is a modern thing, and it's in an odd sense. It's sort of, you used to have to do it anyway. Like years ago when I sold road bikes in Devon, that if you sold someone a road bike, you'd have to take the 130 stem off it, and you'd have to take the like 5339 chain set off it, and the 1123 cassette off it, and then you'd have to. And they're like, oh, I just spent like back then, I suppose, like £2,000 on a bike, and how come I've got to change all these bits? And so, well, you're not going racing, are you? Because bikes have gone the other way now. If you want to go racing on them, you've got to change half of it.
Yeah.
So we've oddly made progress, but in a different way.
Do you see the same thing with mountain bikes as well? You race mountain bikes more than you do road bikes these days.
Yeah.
And so on. But I don't know who's turning up to. I haven't raced mountain bike for ages.
You should do it, Wei.
I know. I went to Wales.
A little track to practice on out here.
I know, it's great. You have to hook me up with a bike.
Oh, is that the time?
Just leave that one there.
I don't know. What is? I think the point of entry is probably easier because the arms race isn't as massive, and oddly, like mountain bikes seem better value than road bikes. I think like you can be competitive on a mid-range hardtail, and you could go ride, say, a Southern XC, smash around it, and like the difference between that and spending, say, £10,000 on one probably isn't that big. Say from say like £5,000 to £10,000, like what you're going to gain isn't that big. Whereas like that arms race thing with like the aero now is massive in it. And
do you think it's just cultural, like the road culture versus mountain bike culture? Because mountain bike culture, you kind of expect your bike to get a bit smashed up, and
it's a bit more honest as well. The racing, I think, because like you can get such a breadth of strength and ability in, say, a bunch of 80 people on, and they can all finish within a second of each other. Yeah, really, like it goes down a bunch.
Yeah,
and you take that same strength and ability and whack them in a cross country race, and the gap will be like 15-20 minutes.
Yeah.
So.
But that's the thing, isn't it? It's like in mountain biking, it's not as much about the bike as it is about the ability and the talent that you have to ride that bike over that terrain. On a crit race, out here on Wednesday night, it is, like I said before, it's just an arms race. Yeah. Because everyone's like of a similar ability in terms of power, because they've all been smashing Zwift over the winter. And is then ultimately whose bike is the fastest, and who did a better job of shaving their legs.
We ought to do recommendations, haven't we? That's it, isn't it?
Well, you know what? I was just thinking back to
a bit cynical.
No, it's true though, isn't it? I think it's very true.
Well, I think that's what was the nicest thing about the Tuesday 10s, like here, the 10-mile time trials run by Lee Valley Cycle Club. Like, I think Alex Dowsett turned up to one of them, and he made a really nice video about it. And it was probably the most popular time trial in the country, and everyone turned up basically on road bikes. There are way more road bikes than time trial bikes, and there are people just coming in after work with like their panniers on and things like that, and smashing out a 10-mile time trial. felt great. All right, let's go home.
That is a fun part of time trialing, that there's like a space in the sport for everyone. Like, unless you really want to win, you can kind of do whatever you want, and like you can turn up and just try and sort of better yourself.
Yeah,
but that's the thing. You're only racing yourself, really, are you?
Yeah.
Unless you are at the pointy end, it's like, right, can I get round a little bit quicker than I did last time? Same course. And it's measurable and it's tangible. Whereas if you're riding around in a bunch, there's so much that's like out of your control. It's just like, if someone, tries to give thumbs up to their mate on the other side of the circuit or whatever, or rides through a ditch and sweeps across the entire mountain.
Is that the little foamy bit out there? Drop off the edge and it's like bang.
Well, it's like, you can end up on the deck with no front teeth and a massive insurance bill through no fault of your own.
Yeah. It's tricky, isn't it? And I think like the cross country racing is like you sort of hear this through and through, that like people have the best fun just having this little battle, because I think competition, like I think none of us I think this speaks for all of us and our client base and everything. None of us are really at the sort of pinnacle of the sport. So. Because if they were, they wouldn't.
How dare you?
And I think we want honest competition. I think we want. I think we want battles, and I think we want that thing where it's like, I'm quicker through this section, and I've gained like 2 seconds, but he's ridden back to me on this next bit, and you want that puzzle and the fun aspect of going, like trying to work it out. And I think ultimately that gets lost a bit in that type of bunch racing, where you can go around in the bunch and sort of do nothing for the whole race, and it's sort of like you're still in touch and you've still finished, but you've also not really battled, have you? You've kind of
just ridden around.
Yeah,
that's why cross is so good.
Yeah,
like, Who's fastest through the sand? Who's fastest through the mud? Like,
it's that same thing, isn't it?
Yeah, who can get over the barriers quicker or up the steps or whatever. It's like there's little races within the race.
Yeah,
and that's
and also it doesn't matter. Like if you're feeling good, you're battling for 6th. If you're feeling junk, you're battling for 13th. But you still got this project in front of you where you're like, right, I need to beat that guy.
Yeah.
And if it's like, it doesn't matter that Nick Craig's like 10 minutes up the road, like
standard, isn't it?
Yeah,
honestly? It's like,
love that man. He's just
absolute hero.
Yeah. And he's the nicest bloke in the universe.
Well, that's the thing. You can't hate the guy.
No,
he's so good, but he's so nice.
Yeah, I remember being at one of the national series, and he won it, and he's vet 50, so he's in his early 50s, and he just left this little trophy on the side, and someone went like, "Oh, you left your trophy behind." And he's like, "Oh, it's right, I've got loads of them." Like, I don't. Like, it's kind of like a little like act of charity. It's like, well, they've got to pay for these, so there's no point me.
Use it next week. It's fine.
Yeah. You know those things where they like you open like the cupboard door and like cans of beer fall out. He's got that, but national trophies like. Oh, this cupboard's got cyclocross ones in. It's like
I'll win the elites on the Saturday and then go to race vets on Sunday.
Oh, it's fantastic, and it sort of, despite what my mum says, it shows that you can be really competitive. It doesn't matter how old you are. Like, and you know, he's going to be this quick when he's 60 as well. And
but that's the nice thing about like these off-road races, like whether it's cross or mountain bike, you're racing in the same races like all these top end guys, and even when I was racing 24-hour, like that was brilliant because you get all the pros in there, and they're just racing exactly the same course.
And I think that's what's really cool as well, that you go to. Whether it's a Southern XC or like a national series or whatever, that you are riding the same course with the same obstacles, and you can even compare times, because generally speaking, unless the weather's catastrophic, you got a good like indication of how quick your laps were, and like even compared to like Evie Richards turned up to some of them, and it's interesting like seeing how quick these elite women are, and they're just like. Awesome, yeah. Oh, and the skills as well. Like you just even like the some of the like under 23 girls and stuff like that, and they just not batting an eyelid, going off these massive A lines, and you're like, that is incredible. Like,
yeah, it's been really. I did a fit for a young lass called Maisie Harper, and I think she was only 11 at the time, but now she's working her way through the ranks, and it's amazing to see her progress. But even back then, like the stuff that she could do on a mountain bike, absolutely just like creamed a lot of us.
I think it's 10 times cooler to be a girl. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it just. I think the sort of pathway and the distractions and the hurdles to getting really good at what's ultimately like a bit of a burly sport, in it. You get roughed about a bit, and I think that commitment to see sort of young girls coming through the sport is wicked. I think that's really cool and nearly more aspirational, because like young lads get thrown about all the that's kind of what you do as a teenage boy. You batter each other.
But it's the hurdles to getting into it. That's what needs to be kind of removed as much as possible. It's like, right, how do we make this sport more accessible for everyone?
Yeah.
But that's what I love about cross. Again, like you go to a local cross race, it's like the kids race, and everyone's in it together. Everyone's all in it.
The family sense is far greater on the like mountain bikes and cross, isn't there? You see people that their whole sort of family unit's based around it. They've got a camper. It's like, oh, this is what we do through the summer. We go to the national series, so we like we like have a little cook up, and we sit out and you do the practice, and we'll wait for tomorrow, and there's that saying, like, you don't so much get that on the road, do you?
It's not quite the same. It's just a different culture, isn't it?
You don't see people camping at road races, do you? Do you know what I mean? Like, but like the track's cool. Like, that's one thing I found when I used to live in Devon and race in Newport a lot, and then when I moved up to London, the first time I went to Herne Hill, there was like 50% of the people I raced with at Newport. I'm like, it's a bit like, what are you doing here? It's like, well, there's only 5 velodromes around the UK at the time, so if you're going to go racing, if there's something on, people just drive to it, and it's the same family, which was cool.
It's same with BMX. It's like, you see the same people at every race. Like, touring the north of England. It's like, oh, you were at Haworth last week. Oh, yeah, Chesterfield week.
But it makes it more fun, though, doesn't it? Because you see your mates that you don't normally see, and
exactly,
it gives you a bit of motivation to go, doesn't it?
Not for sure.
Yeah. So it sounds like cycling's still in a healthy place then.
I think we just got to all remember that it's good fun. Like, let's just ride bikes and do whatever.
Do what makes you happy, isn't it?
Yeah, and also if you're not having, like, if you've passed that halcyon fun stage of a certain type of cycling, don't just give up cycling. Just try a different type of cycling.
Buy a new bike.
Buy a new bike. Don't chuck money at don't chuck money to the sport to cure the problems of the cycling you're doing. Chuck money at a different corner of the sport. But that's it. Like, I think it's easy to think that like, if you're not having fun with it, that's it and it's broken. But you can just try it, and you meet new people, and you meet new circles, and you kind of just like, you can kind of start that fun learning curve, because I think that's part of it. Like, when you start something new, the progression is a lot more enjoyable and faster, isn't it? And,
absolutely.
And that revives your. If suddenly you're feeling like you're improving every time you go out, whether it's every night or every weekend, then it just makes you want to do it, doesn't it? So
embrace the suck.
Yeah.
I think on that note, then, folks, we're going to wrap it up.
We've all got a new motto.
Embrace the suck, ride your bikes, and have fun.
Well, thanks for having me along.
Enough about butts. Oh, thank you, George. That was amazing. So, we'll have to get you on again.
Yeah, it's good fun, isn't
it? With Nick Craig and Guy Pearson.
Yeah, Nick Craig and Guy Pearson.
What a dream team.
So if you're in any doubt, you definitely need a new bike. Next week we chat to Matthew Butt, British cycling coach and head mechanic at Lee Valley Velodrome. See you next time.